Good afternoon, it's 4 o'clock. I'm calling the regular meeting of the Citrus County School Board to order, and I get opening exercises. Those of you who don't know, I taught for 30 years at the middle school level, which makes me certifiable. And I got this from my students, I don't know how many years ago. I'm going to share it with you. They signed it. Sort of. It's called The Builder. A builder builded a temple. He wrought it with grace and skill. Pillars and groans and arches, all fashioned to work his will. Men said as they saw its beauty, it shall never know decay. Great is thy skill, O builder. Thy fame shall endure for aye. A teacher builded a temple with loving and infinite care, planning each arch with patience, laying each stone with prayer. None praised her unceasing efforts, none knew of her wondrous plans. For the temple the teacher builded was unseen by the eyes of men. Gone is the builder's temple, crumpled into the dust. Low lies each stately pillar, food for consuming rust. But the temple the teacher builded will last while the ages roll. For that beautiful, unseen temple was a child's immortal soul. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we adopt the agenda as recommended by the superintendent, I need to add a tabled item from the last board meeting. It's the school fire alarm system to upgrade the Central Florida Electric of Ocala. And let's put that under 6, after C, let's call that 6D.
I move that we adopt the agenda as recommended by the superintendent with the addition of AD. Is that correct?
6D.
I'm sorry, 6D, which is the upgrade of, approval of award of the Inverness Primary School fire alarm system.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kennedy, a second by Mr. Dodd. Do we have any further questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, here we are at citizens' comments, and I am in a quandary because I think you're not supposed to talk until 5:15, but here you all are. Now, the thing that we're going to vote on will happen at 5:30, the public hearing. But if you'd like to talk now, we can do that. You have 3 minutes, and I will call first Adam York.
And I just want to remind the board that, and just so the audience knows, you can come on, is that at the public hearing, what you're voting on is a change to the student progression plan. The board had a meeting in November, and then we workshopped some specific language to go in there. And just so that the audience knows, and to remind the board, that is a public hearing, and that is part of our policy. You can't change anything that's in there. You're either going to have to vote to adopt the new language, and then the new language will become part of the policy, or you vote not to adopt the new language, and the old language stays part of the policy. So just to remind the board, because it's a public hearing that was advertised, you're not going to be able to modify anything, here today. Any modifications will have to occur at a later date, through a workshop and then re-advertise to make any changes, just so that y'all are aware to the audiences here.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. Please state your name.
My name is Adam York.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Adam York, and I'm a sophomore attending Christian High School and the Academy of Environmental Science. It's hard being a student of both schools, but let me tell you my story of how I got here. When I was 7 years old, my parents told me I could be anything I wanted when I grow up. I took this to heart. Personally, at age 7, I didn't know what I was going to be, but I knew one thing. I had a choice. This is why I'm here today with a lot of my friends, peers, and family. Tonight, so we can continue the movement where all students have the choice to choose how they receive their education. Now, just like adults working a job, we're doing the same thing by progressing on our academics. Now let's start where I was in middle school. I was an avid NJHS, FFA, etc. I like to do programs like Computers to Great School. Learning wasn't just a job for me anymore, it was a passion. I grew strong in it. I did well through my middle school years, and when it was time for high school, I made a choice to come to the academy. My first year at the academy, I excelled and learned an abundance of knowledge that felt like a short 36 weeks, just my first freshman year. Now, I came to my 10th grade year, and as it is before, we're allowed to spend 1 semester at the academy instead of 3 years. I was okay with this at first, and I went through my first semester, and I took 4 classes that continued to excel all of my academic knowledge. I wanted to attend another semester at the academy because I wanted to take things that don't look. My 10th grade year was rough, just right now as I am. A lot of things felt like I was distanced from base schools, from Citrus County in general. And I want to be able to bring that back to where we have a choice and to be stronger. So here I am as a sophomore, a student who feels like he's lost his choice. And moreover, a human who feels repressed because he cannot and won't be allowed to pursue his own education. In a country that feels so strongly about its youth and its future, why are we making it so hard to choose? If today was your last day and tomorrow was too late, could you say goodbye to yesterday? Could you live your last days knowing that all of your choices in your life might have been wrong? Well, today, all of you were given a choice. I'm not here to tell you how to do any of your jobs. I'm only asking that you can say yes and let me do mine. So please, say yes to making a choice. Tomorrow, if it was possible, that I could be at the academy, participating with all of my peers, learning, just like every student in the entire Citrus County school system. It would just be amazing and a miracle on earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Kelly LaPlante, all right, very good. I'm glad I didn't just pronounce that. Please state your name.
My name is Kelly LaPlante. Okay. Over the last 3.5 years, I've had the honor of representing Citrus County at a variety of academic competitions. These competitions include the Florida State Science and Engineering Fair, where I won 4th place in engineering my sophomore year, the National Ocean Sciences Bowl competition, where my team placed 14th in the entire United States, and the Florida State Environthon competition, where my team placed 1st in aquatics and 6th overall for the state of Florida. In every one of these competitions, Citrus County gained recognition in high caliber competitions and set a reputation for future students. AES as a school is unique because it offers these academic opportunities that are supported so enthusiastically by the teachers and the students, as well as offers a curriculum that is taught at the honors or college level. In fact, many students, including myself, feel very strongly that AES fits the niche detailed in Florida Statute number 1002.3105, also known as the Academically Challenging Curriculum to Enhance Learning Options. This statute states that a district must provide programs that, quote, may include but are not limited to enriched science, technology, engineering, and mathematics coursework, enrichment programs, flexible grouping, advanced academic courses, combined classes, self-paced instruction, and rigorous industry certifications that are articulated to college credit and approved pursuant to SS, end quote. This means that students consider AES to be an academically fulfilling extension of their base schools, not as an adversary. Now, the concern of a student going to AES and not fulfilling the graduation requirements could be a valid one. However, if a student truly does want to attend AES for as many semesters as they can, then they will do the work to ensure that they are on track for their graduation. This not only teaches a strong work ethic and responsibility, but adequately prepares that student for college. It is true that AES does not have a traditional guidance counselor. However, the staff at AES is extremely knowledgeable, and in my experience often knows more about the laws and rules for high school graduation than my own base school guidance counselor. Contact with the base school guidance counselors isn't an issue either, because there are several mandatory days where a student must meet with their base school guidance counselor and check their graduation progress, in addition to the regular phone calls and emails that everyone already uses. So to conclude, AES acts as an academically challenging extension of the base schools that is capable of teaching skills necessary for properly preparing a student for college. As long as the student is on track for graduation, that student should have the choice to choose what semesters that they attend AES. This not only provides flexibility in their academic path, but allows them to maximize the opportunities provided to them by the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle Jocelyn. Kyle, if you state your name.
I am Kyle Jocelyn. So, AES is where I envision spending my high school years. Having moved here from the state of Virginia in 2015 in order to attend, I worked hard to get into AES. It was not given to me. I had to earn the privilege myself. But now it seems like I can't even count on my base school to get the classes I need to follow my chosen career path. Why? Because the classes I was told I would be getting at my base school are too full of students, resulting in class changes that I have no control over whatsoever. What does AES mean to me? A place that will enable me to realize my dreams of ornithology, which is the study of avians or birds. A place that has inspired me to learn, stretch, and grow like no other before. A place where everyone at my school is invested in our futures. I had no idea what it meant until I was able to experience the environment of AES. There is no comparison to the student-focused, hands-on environment. It cannot be duplicated. This experience has been compelling in ways I'm not sure I can really put into words. And then now I'm in my sophomore year. I attend orientation to my base school, and it has 500 plus incoming freshmen. I was dumped from needed classes because they were too full with students. And instead of the classes I had chosen, I was given pottery and video editing as substitutes. I found the transition from the academy to my base school quite difficult and disorienting, and I was losing interest in the classes that I was given instead of the ones I had chosen. I wish I could map out my future to ensure I could get the college of my choice. And after a semester of my base school, falling through the cracks had taken on a new meaning. I don't want walls or barriers. I need choices. I need a purposeful environment, not one that will stick me in a class because it's open. I have worked too hard on my education to let my future be blocked or wasted by undefined policies, unavailable classes, and no other resource for a bad semester. I want to be able to attend the academy for 8 semesters if I so choose. And while AES is not able to offer all of my needed classes, there's Clearly no guarantee I'll be able to get them via my day school either. I want an academy specialist who can help guide me in my choices if my needs can't be met through the original school system. Once again, we need better choices. We need purposeful, transparent policies for all students for our personal, educational, and career goals. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, Alyssa Lathrop? Thank you, Alyssa. State your name.
James Elisa Luthrop. Thank you, honored board members, for giving me the chance to express my grievances this evening. I think I should first mention that I am not a public speaker. In fact, I was having a great deal of trouble even trying to muster up the courage to speak here tonight. But I have decided to speak, because this is an issue that holds great importance to me, as it affects not only my future, but the future of every other student who will attend AES after this night. I, as well as many other students, are being denied our right to choose what we want to do for our education. In the past, a precedence was set for students to be allowed back at AES for the full year if they wanted to. To remove that choice now, without prior warning or even a transition period, is unfair and unjust to every student involved. Not only that, but the education that I am receiving at the Bay Schools right now, that I would receive at the Bay Schools, is not what I need for my career path. While I respect the Bay Schools, as they are very good institutes, I'm afraid to say that my future career lies with the opportunities that I can get at AES. I want to go into the marine sciences, as that's my passion. That's what I've worked for my entire life. I remember as a little girl growing up when I was 7, I went to an aquarium, and the experiences I saw there, it just transformed me. I want to go into the marine sciences. That's my one goal in life. And due to that, the hands-on experiences that I receive at AES in the marsh and going out in the kayaks and the canoes, those are invaluable to me and to my education and to my future career. And due to location, these are experiences that I cannot get at the Bay Schools. All I'm asking the board is just to consider my position. All I want is the ability of choice, to be able to decide for myself where I should receive my education and what would be best for my future. The student's education should come first, and no one knows best more for the student than the student does. So please, let every student who wants to return to AES do so tomorrow. It's only right that we have that ability to make that choice. Thank you for your consideration. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Nicole Luthrop. Please state your name.
My name is Nicole Lutra. You might have guessed who Lutra is.
I figured that out.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to appeal to the board members by sharing the plight of my daughter, who finds herself caught up in a situation similar to other students that is not of her making. Our daughter's passion is the marine sciences. AES provides her the courses and field work optimum for her chosen path. She entered AES in a system that had allowed flexibility to students before her. She envisioned her student progression for the years based on the courses that AES best aligned to her career goals. Now all of a sudden, that choice is being denied. A door is being slammed shut right off the bat. She has to take courses that are a plug, not a fit to her needs. And she feels marginalized as a result. This is obviously not fair, as no orderly transition has been considered that could have allowed students to explore all other possible avenues and options that could have been open to them. This is hurting her, it's hurting other students studying under the same existing framework. In the case of our daughter, as likely it is for others, she is far ahead in her student progression plan and can easily meet both her career goals as well as the credits for her timely graduation by attending AES. So here I am appealing to the board members to let her and other students, give them the flexibility and transparency to use their semesters at AES for their best interest, as has been done for the students in the past. They will give back to the community many times what they receive. As a parent to parent, I request the members of the board to consider this. Had this been your own child that was being denied their choice and being hurt, how would you have felt and reacted? Put yourselves in our shoes and our boat. So please, act in their best interest. Let these kids get back to AES tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Logan Capalupa, maybe.
Thank you.
State your name, please, sweetie.
My name is Logan Capalupo. When I first became part of the academy, I thought that I was going to stick out and be different from everybody. But then I quickly felt like part of a family. At the academy, there is no hiding emotions or being hidden behind other students. I then quickly found out that most of the classes offered at the academy fit my career path as wanting to be an FWC officer. Some of the classes that the academy does provide can be given at the high school, at my base school, but they don't have the environment that the base school has, the academy has. The academy, if we want to learn about a specific type of phytoplankton, we can go out into the water and get our samples that day and do tests while they're still alive. There's no getting something out of a freezer. The academy feels like such a great place to be, and I just love it there. I hope that you will please take us into consideration. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Emily McGurrigan. Please state your name.
Emily McGarren. My name is Emily McGarren. I am a current student in the Citrus County School Systems attending AES. I stand before the board this evening to voice my concerns regarding the Pupil Progression Program's lack of flexibility, my denied acceptances to the academy this semester, and how it has negatively affected me. As it currently stands, the Pupil Progression Program doesn't allow for any flexibility and lacks transparency. One board member seeks to limit the abilities of teachers, advisors, and the students to choose the best way to schedule the allotted 6 semesters. And a bureaucratic, one-size-fits-all approach, when in fact, not all students have the same needs and or desires. Some students excel in AVID, others in IB. The students in this room excel at the academy. Not one program fits all students' needs. I submitted a letter of intent to return to the academy this semester, and at the time was given the best schedule, one that worked for me, but was denied acceptance, thanks to one board member's personal disdain for the academy and charter schools in general, and said I was given a schedule for my base school that was a poor fit. As to give me the leftovers and told to deal with it in so many words. I would love for someone to explain how this benefits me. I feel like I'm being punished for being an academy student. And by one board member's political ideology, when this board is supposed to be politically impartial and independent. The one thing that I never felt like at AES is a number. But if the board allows the agenda of one man, then the status quo to stand, a number is all it will be. I am not asking the board for more than my 6 semesters. I am asking for the flexibility to use them in a way that benefits me and my academic needs. It is no secret to any of the students here tonight who have seen and heard of the students that have returned back to the academy for the following semesters because they have been in church with the right board member, or they were on the Crystal River swim team and had the right board connection, yet because we don't have that same connection, we are being discriminated against. There is currently at least one student there right now because her mother went to the district office and either knew someone or yelled the loudest. Yet but that is discriminating against us. It is also no secret to anyone who watches the November 22nd meeting that Mr. Board Member has a personal hatred for AES and charter programs and little care for their students, seeking to limit us and take as much from us as he can, wanting to limit us to 5 semesters or less. When Florida state standards requires only 6 credits to receive a diploma from a Florida high school, I ask the rest of the board members if they truly care about us children and our educational needs. You will stand up against Mr. Board Member's personal progressive crusade and stand with us and for us, giving us a chance to thrive in an environment that inspires us all. I request that you vote tonight so we can go to the academy tomorrow. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Beverly Isabel.
is Beverly Isabel, and I have a daughter that goes to AES. I didn't plan anything to say, but I can tell you that I'm not as good a speaker as these kids are. These kids, they know that the academy is a place that inspires them and gives them a reason to get up every day, and gives them a reason to excel. When these kids go back to their base schools, I heard this time and time again, that they're not feeling like that they are part of the school, because when they arrive, that half the time their teachers don't even know that they're supposed to be part of the class. When they get there, they're giving classes that they did not sign up for, that they wanted. My daughter in particular was supposed to have geometry this semester. She went over there and was put into some other class, a basic math class, but she far exceeds basic math, but that's all they had open for her. And that does not make any sense to me, why they're being sent back instead of moving forward. These kids look at them, I'm terrible at this, sorry. I feel so strongly about the fact that these kids should be given the opportunity to attend the school that inspires them the most and gives them the opportunity to excel where they are very, very capable of excelling.
Thank you. Nicole Isabel.
My name is Nicole Isabel. I am a current student at the Academy of Environmental Science. I stand before the board today to address the lack of flexibility in the pupil progression plan and the lack of choice allowed to the student and the parent in our education. As in place right now, the Florida state law requires us to have 6 credit hours at our base school to receive a diploma, which adds up to about 1.5 semesters, leaving us with about 6 free semesters that we can do with what we choose. Right now, the choice is not given to us to choose when we go to the academy and when we go to our base schools. Another thing I would like to address is the guidance counselors, and that their hands are tied on this matter and they should not be. Also that they are overworked. For example, Lecanto High School's total population is 1,566 students, with 5 guidance counselors currently employed there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the math shows that the average number of students that are given to each guidance counselor is about 313.2 students per counselor. Now that number of students per counselor does not allow them the time that they need to talk to their counselors and get the choice of classes that they find best fit for them. Most of the time, if you do not go directly to your counselor to personalize your schedule, you are given the classes that are left over and either you don't need or that are not best fit for you. The best example of this, as I have, is that I went to my guidance counselor to formulate my schedule for this current semester, and I was told that I should be put into an advanced art class on my schedule. I was not told anything else about it except that it was a good fit for me and that it would get me the fine art credit that I needed to graduate. Then I went to another guidance counselor and I was told that that class that I was in was for the Art Academy juniors and seniors, and that it would not get me the credit that I needed. The reason that it was so strongly offered to me is that they needed to fill the spots for that class in order to fund it. I am no longer in that class because I am a Science Academy student and not an Art Academy student. Finally, I would like to say that my peers and I have a schedule that formulates our career path at the Academy. Also that the Academy offers us classes that we can take and provides us with the hands-on experience that we need to learn and bring us closer to the career path that we choose to pursue. I am asking the board for a revision to the pupil progression plan that allows us the flexibility to choose where we think is best fit for our education and where we get the challenges that we need. I also ask that my peers and I are granted a waiver that allows us immediate access back to the Academy tomorrow morning, January 11th, 2017. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Megorian? Close. Good. Pronounce your name when you get to the podium, please. I think I have the Douglas right.
You got that part.
All right.
My name is Douglas McGarren.
McGarren, thank you.
I'm here tonight closing for these children. Now, when I started, talking to my daughter, and I'm involved, volunteer with the AES machines, take all the photos that you see on their Facebook. So I'm involved. I'm around these children all the time. These are special graduates. And I've gone over this speech 100 times in my head. Decided to throw this out and speak from the heart. It's no secret that Mr. Kennedy, sir, you're not a fan of charter schools. I don't know why, but you can look around this room and see that they work. So they do work on it. Mr. Dodd. Ms. Bryant. Ms. Bryant. Ms. Powers. Ms. Powers. I appeal to you tonight to take a good hard look at the language that is being proposed. With all due respect, sir, I hope that, like the rest of you, that you're here because you care about the children. But if we truly care about these children, we need to do what's right for them. And that is not a bureaucratic, one-size-fits-all approach, because it says to them, here it is, it works for you, great. It doesn't work for you, we'll give you an applause. That doesn't inspire these children. It doesn't help them. What we need tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is for you guys to do the right thing. We need you to put aside any kind of partisan politics and use common sense. Kids aren't falling through the cracks. Not these kids. You can tell they've got their ass together, listening to each and every one of them, mustering up the courage to stand before a bunch of adults, which is hard enough to do a teacher in a speech class, let alone this group. We need you to start at the baseline. We're not asking you to reinvent the wheel. We're not asking for more than 6 11 semesters. What we're asking is that you allow the flexibility for these kids to make it fit and work for them. I'd like to close with a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. Children do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. We need you to vote tonight to allow them to return tomorrow. Their schedules are in place. This isn't a hard thing. It's a simple vote. And in the interim, we're revisiting the progression program. Fix what's wrong with it. Make it right. Make it work for the future students that are coming up behind you, the freshmen, the kids in the middle school, looking at 10 and
Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you.
Ms. Hill?
I think there's a few misconceptions from everybody. And Mr. Bradshaw can address the piece about the board voting to allow the students to go back to AES tomorrow. If the board votes down the policy tonight through the progression plan, the plan says the same thing as the current one that's in place. What the board members did at the last board meeting was to give our students the flexibility to go to the AES for 2 semesters as a senior before that wasn't in place. The half semester, the sophomore and the junior were in place then as it was on the piece that they voted on last time. I do feel like that I need to address the charter school piece. I don't know what's out there, who's spreading it, but Mr. Kennedy does not like the AES. I don't think we've got one board member on here that will not support the AES just because he's vocal about a few things about the way policy is written. AES is a totally different charter than any other charter across the state of Florida. You can hear me and every single board member up there talk about charter schools. What we told our legislators is we support charter schools throughout the state if they give them the same rules and regulations that they give your public school system. That they hold the teachers, the students, and everybody accountable the same way they do our students. AES, you're our kids. You are probably the only public charter left in the state of Florida. And that's because your board members, all 5 of them, have voted to keep you as a public charter school. When you talk about attending AES for all the semesters, you have to attend one of the mainstream schools sits, you go to AES, you've got the touch to be there 6 semesters, and one of your own high schools for 2 semesters. AES board has the option at some point in their life to say we want to be our own entity, we want to be able to give our own diplomas, and they can go out and get accredited and be their own high school. But that's not the case right now. We help fund the school, and again, I'm very passionate about that school. I was a board member when we voted to bring the board, or to bring the academy on board. It was in place to enhance science. It was never put in place for students to attend there full-time for 4 years. And I appreciate your students. You all, I will tell you, you've got more guts than most students I've ever met. I know you're passionate about it. Someone mentioned Avid. They attend the mainstream schools. Avid programs are within the schools. They're not Avid classes all day. Some of our Art Academy students attend the other classes. So this is not a pick on the academy. This is not a pick on our students at AES, because we are as proud of you. When I stand up and talk about schools, I talk about our 4 high schools. I don't say 3 schools. I don't talk about our 15,000 students, and we've got 82 of them at AES. We never desegregate you from any of our other schools. Parents, we appreciate your support that you give to AES. We appreciate what you give students who attend them. I do believe in my heart that the AES is one of the most unique schools in the state of Florida. The League of Women Voters, they did a complete research packet on charter schools. They came back to me and said, Sam, you need to go to state and tell them how to run a charter school, because Citrus County seems to have it right. This is not a pick on what we want for our students. What our board voted on in the last board meeting is no different than what was already in place. What they did was they gave you more flexibility as being a senior to go out there for both semesters as a senior if your home's own principal signed off on that. So at 5 o'clock tonight, they will have that pupil progression plan discussion at 5:30, and Mr. Bradshaw can address the waiver piece. They cannot do a waiver. It's already in place as a policy. And like I said, he can address it, but that's kind of the bottom line for that piece, on the waiver piece.
Just so you know, that maybe this, school board policy is kind of like, is school board law. So it's kind of like the Florida statute. I think somebody mentioned the Florida statute. So when the school board passes a policy, that's what they have to follow. So a waiver would have to be located inside of the student progression plan, which is part of the policy. So the change that is occurring actually gives more flexibility, but they cannot do a waiver tomorrow because it would have to be the student progression plan. They would have to go back, go through a change again, come to another meeting, approve it for advertising, and then have that out at least 30 days out to have another public hearing. And you cannot, once you approve for advertising and you get to the public hearing, you cannot make a change in what it is at that time. So tonight, what is currently being asked to be approved or not approved, you cannot make a change to it. You know, if you left a period off, you could put a period in there, but you cannot subsequently change the meaning of what it is. That's why it's called rulemaking. It's the Florida Administrative Code, and it's basically, if you go online and look at school board policies, that's the rules that the school board and everyone has to follow as far as the school district is concerned, and the student progression plan is part of a policy making format. So nothing will be changed tonight. It will either be voted yes, we will accept the new language as written, or no, we won't, and the old language stays. So,
Madam Chair, is this the time of discussion on this, or will we be discussing it further? Because I would like to have some comments. I have some things I'd like to discuss, so we'll do that at 5:30.
All right.
Madam Chair. Yeah,
They are.
and Madam Chair, I just want to say, because I think I deserve a moment here to respond.
One moment, your time's up. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
I'm sorry that there seems to be a very, very misunderstanding to my position on AES, and in particular, one of the only district-sponsored, not just a district school, but a district-sponsored charter school. So many times when you hear me talk about charter schools, those are about public charters or they're about private charters largely. And I talk about those specifics. This is one of the only district-sponsored charter school, and by that, it really means it's a district-sponsored program. That's why it's different. It's one of the only ones in the state that we are all aware of. And even the educational commissioner has a personal connection with this school and recognizes it is extremely unique because it is a symbiotic relationship that it has between the school district and the academy. That said, I have very passionate, strong beliefs about the academy being an excellent opportunity. I am imploring you that if there's been some comments made that are so far removed from where my beliefs are, where my thinking is, or what this board's thinking is, and I would encourage you, contact me personally. You want to sit down? I am more than happy to do that and talk to you about it. This issue that we've been dealing with, while these are some wonderful things happening in this room with some wonderful students, there's another side to this. And we have been working for over 2 years. This policy was first voted on over 18 months ago. Why that was not communicated to you is not this district's understanding. Because it's not our district to make that, it would have been the charter school's communication. So I'm disappointed that somehow this information has become new to you all of a sudden, because it's been something that actually originated by the lead teacher and administrator at the Academy of Environmental Science, who said, we've got some issues and we need you to put in the pupil progression plan some specifics. And that's what we did. Over 2 years ago, we started that process. So I just feel like that is information that somehow you're thinking we did something different. What we're actually doing now is we broadened it. I was the one that made the motion to broaden it from what the existing policy is. And in essence, it's still that this board is going farther than the charter contract. Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Counts. We have a motion by Ms. Powers, a second by Ms. Counts to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. And Ms. Verdelami, could we have the donations?
We have several donations today listed on the consent agenda. Grants funded by the Citrus County Education Foundation totaling $14,432.50 for December 2016. $516.18 donation to Offender Primary School and DonorsChoose.org, a $500 donation grant to Citrus High School from FLW Alpiners Foundation.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're a little late, but we're ready for the presentation for Outstanding School Volunteers. Thank you, Ms. Worthaler.
Now this is when I really wish one of those students could present for me.
I'll pick one for you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, Superintendent Himmel, and members of the board. I have the honor today to present to you members of our school community who contribute to the success of our district. These individuals represent the over 1,500 volunteers and mentors that we have serving in our district who give unselfishly of their time to support our students and to make a difference in the lives of our students. Each year we call upon the schools to submit candidates to be considered for the Florida Department of Education Outstanding Volunteer Award. Nominations are submitted to the district office, and a committee of support staff members and educational leaders go through the decision-making process and select the recipients based on those who have shown outstanding dedication and commitment to quality education. There are two categories for the Outstanding School Volunteer Award, and there is the Outstanding Senior Volunteer and the Outstanding Adult Volunteer. I'm going to present to you our first one, and then go ahead and take pictures and give her certificate, and then we'll present the other one. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So the recipient of our 2016-2017 Outstanding Senior Volunteer Award is Dorothy Joan Bauer.
You can step in, if I can get to her, then we'll get a picture. All right, we have a little bit today. Get in the middle.
Okay. Mrs. Bauer volunteers at Hernando Elementary and is loved by students and staff. She has volunteered for 10 years. Okay, she has volunteered for 10 years and contributed over 293 hours of service this past year. Described as having the patience of a saint, she works in multiple classrooms, listening to students read, assisting students with mastering multiplication facts, and forming bonds with students that last throughout their time at Hernando Elementary. Been there over 10 years, so you followed them up as they come through. Mrs. Bauer truly cares about children, and the school looks forward to a returning year after year. So, Ms. Bauer, we thank you for your dedication. I know you have some extra guests and support here, so I'd like to get them all to come on up. Come on up and get pictures. Sister is here.
All right. So join us. Right here.
Come on up.
Over there. All right.
Thank you very much. Our 2016-17 Senior Volunteer Award. Okay. The recipient of the 2016-2017 Outstanding Adult Volunteer Award is Kathleen McNally. Okay. Ms. McNally has volunteered at LeCanto Primary School for the past 2 years, contributing over 260 hours of service in the past year and a half. She works in various classrooms, in the office, and in the media center. She even takes home work with her. So she's a volunteer that volunteers at the school and even takes home work with her. She is considered an integral part of classrooms that she works in, providing one-on-one support and encouraging students. In addition to her classroom assistance, she helps out in the office and in the production room, making copies, delivering mail, and whatever else is needed. In the media center, Ms. McNally assists with shelving books, checkouts, and keeping things running smoothly, even on picture day. That's a great accomplishment. So we thank you, Ms. McNally, for your dedication, and let's go ahead and we have some members here from LeCanto Primary that are here to recognize you and support you.
Our camera is filled with room. All right, look at Chris. Thank you.
Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for helping recognize our volunteers. Thank you.
Look at the room, so thank you. Okay, next we have School Support Services. Swain.
Good afternoon. I am here to ask approval of the instructional and support recommendations as outlined in the Goldenrod.
I don't think Fedora's can retire.
I know.
Just saying.
I'll make the motion. Make the motion that we approve the instructional and support recommendations as listed on the board.
Okay. A motion by Mr. Dodd, a second by Ms. Counts. Do we have any questions or comments? All those in favor? Yes, we are. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Mr. Chamberlain.
Good afternoon. We're here to share some information about our FTE forecast for next year. This handout I provided basically just gives you some information that comes from the DOE software that's provided for us to do this process. The first page shows the historical FTE by grade level. If you notice over the last few years, some of the lower grades have actually been going down, kindergarten first, whereas some of the middle grades are going up now, 4th, 5th, 7th. As being in the high schools, it's more of a mixed up and down. The annualization is for the current year. It just uses various factors to estimate what we'll have for the remainder of this year. Since at this point we've only submitted the first FTE cycle in October, we still have February, so it's estimating what we'll have for February. Next page is historical information by FEFP program. Again, since our lower grades have had a downward trend, the 101 is also having a downward trend over the last few years. 102, on the other hand, has been moving up, and 103 is also moving up over the last few years. There's some of our special areas, ESE, vocational, have had a downward trend also. The next page is just a graph of historical FTE, so you see that overall, our FTE has been moving up over the last 2 years. And then the following page gives you a graph of the kindergarten class minus the prior year grade 12, which kind of gives you a feeling for the growth of the students exiting versus the students entering the district. If you go in the first point, that's erroneous because it wasn't a prior year. But you will see that starting this year, we actually have a negative trend. Our kindergarten class is actually smaller than our exiting 12th grade class. And I don't think that's really happening. It is very interesting. The good old days, it was quite opposite. That's our current trend. So another thing that's much different in the last couple of years is our comparison of our births to the kindergarten entrance. About 10 years ago, it used to be very positive. We used to have a lot more kindergarten students than births in the county for that year, or for the 5 years prior, actually, for that class. But we've had a reverse trend lately, and now you see we have the top line is the births, and the bottom line is the kindergarten entrance. So our kindergarten entrance are much fewer students than are actually born 5 years prior to that. Next page is just information on the different statistical models that are available in the software. Some of the models look at 5 years of data, some of the models just look at 3, 2, or even just the last current year. And they weight it differently, so you kind of see what is available through the system. Since we don't have a real steady trend in the district, you'll notice on the next page is a simulation graph of how the different models would estimate our current year's FTE. We obviously want the model that has the smallest deviation from what the actual FTE looks like it's going to be this year. So we look for the model that's down in the bottom left quadrant, or as close to that as possible. You see model 9 is kind of all by itself. All the other models have a large variance in the deviation from what we would estimate for this year. So it looks pretty obvious from this graph that model 9 is our best choice for estimating next year's FTE. And as you see previously, model 9 is really just looking at 1 year's history. So it's predicting next year's FTE based on what we did this year. The next page is just a graph again of the total FTE, including the forecast for next year. So it shows that this forecast predicts some additional growth for next year overall. And then the very last page is a spreadsheet showing the unweighted and weighted growth that this model would predict for each of our programs. So again, with the trend of having smaller classes coming in, the 101, 111, which is our K-3, is showing reduction. However, we're showing growth in grades 4 to 8, mostly in the middle schools. And then in the high schools, we're showing some reduction also. We're continuing to lose more of the high school FTE to virtual classes and other educational opportunities. And we're showing a slight growth in our special areas, which helps us with our Group 2 cap.
I've got a quick question in regards to the weighted forecasted FTE. So you're predicting, increase in FTE, but the numbers, what's that, less than 50 though, is that correct?
Yes.
50 more students?
Yes, approximately 50 more students.
And percentage-wise, I mean, that's very small increase.
Yes, it is.
So in most terms, we're probably close to flat. I mean, there's no real increase in student forecast, student population forecast for next year.
Not a significant growth. No, it's fairly flat. And it's, as I said before, mainly the growth is happening in the middle schools. And unfortunately, we have smaller classes coming in our elementary students. Any other questions?
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay, and we're ready for the fire alarm, yeah.
That's correct. Good afternoon. Wanted to bring back before the board today the topic of the IPS fire alarm bid. If you recall, back in December, we brought that bid to the board. We had much discussion about the elevated cost of the bid, how far it was above and beyond our budget. If you recall, our staff budgeted $305,000 for that project. We only had one bidder place a bid for that the IPS fire alarm job, and that bid came in at $460,000. If you recall, back in December, we had there was a lot of conversation amongst the board, and the board elected to table that decision at that time to give our staff an opportunity to go to the contractor and try to negotiate the price down. If you recall, we did get a legal opinion that because there was less than 2 bidders to submit a bid for that project, that we did have the authority to negotiate the price of that project. My staff got together with the contractor, and through their negotiation efforts, they were able to see a reduction in the cost of that project by $50,000. That still remains, that project still remains in excess of $400,000. And after discussing this situation with Mr. Burkall, Mr. Stokes, and Mr. Colasante, we have some other options that the board can pursue if they so choose. I'd like to share with you those options so you guys can make the most informed decision here today. First and foremost, you can accept that bid of $410,000 and we would proceed as with that project. You can also decide as a board to reject that bid. If you reject that bid, I would need direction for staff to entertain the idea of bringing that bid back, bringing that project back up for rebidding sometime in the near future. There is no question that we need to address that fire alarm issue at Ames Primary School. But if we were to bring it back as another bid opportunity, what I would recommend is that we write the bid in such a way that the base bid would be for the sole source product that we had in this current bid. But we'd also write the bid in such a way that the bidders could also bid the project with an alternate system. You know, not just one, but possibly two alternate systems. We feel by doing that, we get away from that gives contractors the opportunity to get away from the sole source product. That would also, because not everyone can issue the product that we wrote in our sole source bid. By doing that, that would give the more bidders an opportunity, or more contractors to bid on this specific product. Maybe more competition, maybe the project come in at a lower number. So at this time, I really just would like to turn it over to the board for you guys to give staff direction as you like for us to proceed.
I have a question about, I thought there was going to be some kind of problem with having IPS monitored by, tell us
Yes,
about that.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Fire marshals.
The rule is this: if the fire alarm system goes down for a period of time greater than 4 hours, we must have fire watches on campus anytime the building is occupied with students. So what that means is this: if the fire alarm, in the meantime, while we're rebidding, if that's the direction we're going, if the fire alarm was to fail for a period of time greater than 4 hours, we would get with the fire marshal and we would work out a plan to have the building covered with fire watches. Those are the employees that we'd have to pay, that we'd have to hire people to come in, whether that's to get the folks through the fire marshal or get folks on our own to basically walk the halls and monitor the building in the event the fire alarm system fails and we're not able to repair within a reasonable amount of time.
And how much would that cost us? Do you have any idea?
We have not got to that. No, ma'am, we have not got to that point. We'd have to consult with the fire marshal to determine how many fire watches we have to have and pretty much what the going rate is to pay for someone for the fire watch.
It would depend too, Madam Chair, on whether or not it was a month, we're talking about a week, 2 weeks. If that system were to fail, which it is not, if that system were to fail, and when that would fail, and we would have to repair that system. Those are one of those.
Oh, yes, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bishop, the reduction of 50,000 is not really what I would consider negotiations, but was that the sole source bid?
Yeah.
Would these people be able to rebid if we gave them the option to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then no loss, no foul.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I would like to say, you know, when we first budgeted $305,000, you know, I questioned that as extreme. I mean, I felt like that was high.
That's right.
And then when the bid came in at $460,000, which I pulled for discussion, that is, you know, as we discussed, seemed way out of line. And now we also know that the engineer that has worked on that project has confirmed that, our thoughts on that. And even with the $50,000 reduction, which I still believe is not nearly enough, I understand that the engineer still feels like even that's a little high. Is that correct, Mr. Bishop?
That's correct.
Okay. So my thoughts are we rebid it and give the district the opportunity to change that sole source requirement like you had discussed. And the question I would have though is what time frame would we rebid? Would we wait until the summer or when would we rebid?
No, sir, we want to do that sometime between mid to late spring.
So we would rebid it this year and say, what's your proposal? March, April, you're saying?
March, April, yes, sir.
And so that the work could be done during the summer feasibly?
Well, it depends if we get the bid back in that time. That'd be a pretty aggressive timeline. I'd have to defer to Mr. Burkhalter.
All we need is a bid to reject.
We would need a vote to reject the bid as it came in at $410,000 after negotiations.
That's what we need.
So motion to reject the bid as it came back as negotiated.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, sir.
But we will get right on that.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Walker.
Okay, 2 items I'm going to talk to y'all about this evening. Evidently, the first thing is to do with the reserve calculation of SLP.
So as you can see, you got each of the columns there from the final conference report, the second calc, which was in July, and the third calc is after the October count that came back to us in December. So we're up about 83, 84 students on the unweighted side, and about 116 on the weighted. And then, so it did adjust our funding a little bit. If you go all the way to the bottom, you can see the difference. It's a difference, an increase in funding of about $483,000. Now, before we realize that that's a significant increase to our funding, we got to look and peel back the onion and see where that real increase came from. And when you do that, you look at the McKays, and the McKays are counted on two counts, the October and February count. We had approximately 90 kids in the McKay Scholarship Program this year on that count, which accounted for slightly, a little bit over $500,000. So we do see an increase in revenue of $482, but $500,000 of it's going to be paid directly to those private schools where those McKay Scholarship kids attend. So we really are flat for the third calc in revenue. We've seen the last couple of years an increase in McKay scholarships because now they do afford the opportunity to have 504s as well as the ESE kids with the IEP. So that's where we've seen the increase. So we really don't have any revenue increase after the third calculation based on the McKay scholarship account. So we'll get the fourth calc in February. We'll see how we land there. And of course, you saw Steve's forecast for next year's budget, so we'll start working on that as well for next year's budget.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Our attorney just stepped out, so much for attorney legal matters. Let's start with,
Right.
oh, save him, go ahead.
The next item is I want to go over the budget calendar for the 17-18 budget year.
So of course, this pretty much mirrors how we've done the calendar each and every year. Of course, we're here today to review the calendar with you. And then tomorrow, Mr. Chamberlain does submit the FTE request to DOE. February 15th is what we consider like our kickoff meeting with the district administrators to go over kind of the forecast of next year's budget, how we see things moving. And then several dates in there when people start preparing their budgets, we start reviewing their budgets. But we plan on coming back to the board on February 28th for the first budget and for the general fund, FEOP, and the capital funding for the first workshop to kind of give you some information introductory to what we see the budget looking like this year. Of course, the session would not have started yet, but we can kind of look at how we are, make some forecasts as to the ending budget for the current year, and then looking forward to next year's budget. And then you go through, there's several dates in there for different budget reviews, human resources, start pushing through some initial runs on personnel. Then we'll come back to you April 25th for the next budget review with you, and then eventually we'll come back to you in July and start asking you for to advertise, and then of course our tentative budget workshop will be that July 25th is when we'll adopt the tentative budget. The one thing I do want to bring to your attention is I'm asking you to set the final budget hearing a day earlier than what we normally would have done to accommodate for the approval of the annual financial report. It has to be approved by September 11th. That is a Monday. So I'm asking you all to potentially move the 12th meeting to the 11th. That way we can approve the final budget amendment, the AFR, and then also do the final budget hearing that night as well.
So you'd like for our board meeting to be Monday of that week?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know if that, go ahead.
We could easily do it the Tuesday before though too, correct? 9/11, we would have to do it on September 11th, would we, if we chose not to?
You don't have to, it's just time. Time to produce that document. We usually just right up to the wire. We usually get that done like the weekend before the board meeting. So it's not something that, if you say we're gonna do it a week before, that means we now have a week less to get the document and the AFR and everything and the budget. So there's a lot of time to be needed to be preparing those
usually it's regular.
Yeah. That's why we asked just for the one day. The rule in, basically says in Florida Administrative Code, it says if you have to submit the AFR, it has to be approved and submitted by 9/11. So I just asked for you all to consider that when we're moving through the budget process.
Do we have a public meeting on 9/11? Okay,
Well, we have to use it tomorrow.
okay. Thank
I
you.
have a question in regards to health insurance, because we're going to be rebidding that for this next year, because the health insurance contract ends, what, at the end of the year?
In the calendar year.
In the calendar year. So we're going to be in the middle of the budget, the fiscal year. And so how do we correlate that amount that could cost or save the district into our budgeting process here?
I mean, we have already worked through some models already that we were out this year, next year, like 3 years out to look at some modeling as far as budgets for health insurance. So we will come to you actually at this workshop in January and start talking to you about where we're at with the health insurance fund and what we're looking at for the future, and then I'll put together timelines to what we would potentially bid out not only the insurance, but the reinsurer, and there's a lot of stuff that goes with it. And then we'll just do like we do every other year, because we do a kind of, it's a mid-year budget for that. We put together the fiscal year budget compared to the health insurance calendar year. So it's kind of a dual process. So we've got those, the goal is hopefully to get back everything, so we can put together some good numbers back in June, July, got up to September for the final budget for the fiscal year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, and there's some big decisions we're going to be making this year on health insurance. I mean, it's cost us a lot of money. And so I just want to make sure that it's thought through in your budgeting process here for the overall budget.
Correct.
So that we're,
Ms. Ernst is going to prepare for you at the next workshop a calendar of events for the specific for the health insurance as well.
Probably the beginning of February, some of you will start hearing about a team going out to talk to our principals and their staff about staffing. So what we'll do is they will go out to the schools, and I've got Mr. Mullen, Mr. Bishop, a couple other people from the district staff. They go out to meet the principals, we're not going to tell them what they're getting and what they're not getting, where they're listening, and that team will bring it back to Mr. Blocker and I. We get to hear all the wishes and all their wants and all their Christmas wishes for the next school year, and then we'll sit down as we go through that staffing, we'll bring those decisions to you all as a recommendation. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you think
Very
not
pretty.
in very small font?
It's a good font.
Thank you, Mr. Blocker. Appreciate it. All right. Attorney Legal Matters. Anybody have a question? Mr. Mullen? Ms. Powers?
Okay.
It's just me not talking about women, but they were talking about mental health, and it's a national concern now. More and more focus on mental health. So they were saying that it's something we really need to concentrate on, make sure all of our students, our faculty, our people on the streets have access to good mental health. I want to have us all consider that, and really need to approach that, we can help these people.
I will help you on that.
Yes. And the second thing is just something I noticed. My daughter went out to the animal show and she adopted a cat. And I was noticing several teachers and several students out there doing the same thing. And I thought, this is really great. This a little connection with mental health. People that are kind and good and supportive of animals usually aren't mean and nasty to people. You know, they usually carry over those feelings and those way they treat people to people. And I was so pleased to see the students out there. They help too. They're out there helping their animals, but they're also adopting them, taking them home. The teachers are doing the same. I saw a principal out there. So it's like kudos to you guys.
That's all. Thank you. Ms. Counts? Okay, I'm just waiting for the 5:30 discussion to begin. You've got 2 minutes. Will that work for you, Mr.
I'll
Kennedy?
start, but I'm sure I'm going to have to come back.
Okay.
Some enrollment update numbers. I know some of you've seen these, but I think we need to again, get some of these on the record. Right now, our elementary school totals are at 91% for all of our schools, but PGE is at 101% occupancy. LPS is at 97%, Central Ridge at 96%, Forest Ridge at 95%, Crystal River Primary at 95%, and Citrus Springs at 91%. That's also in the core most growing area of our county, and where we have a lot of permits that take place. Middle schools, we're faring a little better over there. Citrus Springs, though, which is right in that heart of that same section, they're at 93%, and Lecanto is at 89%. At our high schools, we have 2 of them that are over 90% right now. Lecanto and Crystal River at 91%, and Citrus is at 83%. And again, I wanted to get those on the record. Ms. Powers talked about that we were at the legislative delegates meeting on Friday, and some of you might have heard me mention about House Bill 6015, which is being sponsored by Representative Ralph Mazzullo, and Representative Mazzullo has been working with me on this. This has been my varsity sports exemption that I've been trying to get the legislature to correct. This would enable varsity sports, or interscholastic is how it's referred to, because it could be general. Junior varsity could even be intramurals. That has the same option of having a PE waiver that our marching band and that our, and I'll just finish this thought, just that marching band, JORTC, and dance have. So, and I'll give that back over to you.
Okay, we've got public citizens' comments this time, if anybody wishes to address the board. All right, back to you, Mr. Kennedy.
So right now, Representative Mazzullo is looking for a companion bill on that in the Senate, but I know that he has already gotten some favorable conversations in the educational committees, so I'm just going to try and keep us abreast of that. What I'm most excited about is that he is running another bill that, that he's been asking me to provide some input on, and that is to provide some additional high school graduation flexibility under a standard diploma. And the 2 things that he's focused on is providing a CTE pathway through a standard diploma, so that a lot of our students may graduate right now passing the FSA, and that's part of the requirement. Well, another requirement, way to, in lieu of that pass, is through CTE pathway and get accreditation there. But the other big one is something we've talked about on this board, and that is to provide a portfolio option for high school students, for the FSA, for EOCs, as we have at the 3rd grade level, but to have that at the secondary level. I think that this district has shown that that has been most successful, and so I'm excited to see him running that bill. The other things I just wanted to share is Blessings in a Backpack. I serve on that board of directors. We currently have 1,216 students that we are serving at 20 schools. But there was a recent wonderful thing that took place over the holidays. A Dickie Neichman, I believe is his name, contacted Citrus Springs Middle School, which is our highest middle school that receives Blessings in a Backpack. He wanted to serve 15 meals to our most needy families. And so Lee Parton contacted Blessings in a Backpack, and they coordinated together. Ms. Parton spent the better part of that day helping feed those 15 families that had a holiday meal. But that day, Mr. Neum and his wife fed over 100 families, including our 15, as well as they sent meals to every fire station in the EOC in the district. But I'm very grateful also to him and to Lee Parton on that. I need to come to the bigger part of my part of it, and it has to do with impact fees. And so I'm going to share with you all, and I'll pass these in two directions. This is a condensed copy of the impact fee ordinance, and particularly highlighted the sections of the current impact fee ordinance regarding schools. The bottom line really goes to what is page 9 there, and it has to do with the 5-year review. And I'm going to come back to it in a second, but I want you to just look at that, if you would, in a moment. You see something interesting happen that I don't know that we have looked at. And it happened last year, and it's interesting that it happened at the request of the Board of County Commission. A new interlocal agreement was signed by the Board of County Commission. It was initiated with them, the cities, and the Citrus County School System. And as you get that, if you turn to page 2, this was signed on March 22nd by Ron Kitchen, and Ms. Hemmel and Ms. Powers signed this as well. Mr. Bradshaw's signature's there. Under the section 2, it has counties and cities' rights and obligation. The county and the cities of Inverness and Crystal River shall assess and collect an impact fee for public school facilities capital improvement according to the terms and conditions of the Citrus County Ordinance 2015 A07. That was the first one I handed out. To my recollection, in going back and doing some research myself, this is the first time that the word shall has been put into a document stating that impact fees must be collected. If you go back to the section regarding the collection of impact fees in the 5-year review, what is interesting to me is that it says and I'll just briefly say here, the superintendent on school fees and other appropriate providers of county facilities shall recommend to the Board of County Commissioners whether any changes should take place on the impact fee schedule to reflect changes. To me, one of the issues that paragraph doesn't seem to be about necessarily reducing, but ensuring that a proper amount of fees are collected. And the issue to me is that, and I'm just one board member who's looking at this and reading this, and I don't have a law degree, but I do feel that this is a little different, this shall language, than previously we've looked at. What has been concerning is that most recently the Board of County Commission, after we asked to be treated fairly and equitably, approved transportation fees because they needed it in their budget, but denied the school system fees and asked for those fees to continue to be suspended. My fear is that not a whole lot's going to change in the coming months with the Board of County Commission. We have laid out our 5-year plan every year. We are very transparent about what we're doing and what our needs are. You're asking us to predict with a crystal ball where we're going to be 10 years out from now. Well, 10 years ago, the county did not recognize that they needed to expand 491. And they're in a situation now where they're going to need to collect. So, Madam Chair, what I am suggesting is that we, as a board, look today to give direction to our attorney to look more closely into this issue of whether this word shall in this document change anything and give us some empowerment to legally request now that the Board of County Commission honor our wishes in the assessment of impact fees. I believe we have an obligation to our students, to our schools, to our taxpayers, who are going to continue to bear the burden of these not being collected. And with that, I finished my portion of it, but I did want to ask that I think that we do that. I will say this, we have a meeting with them on the 20th of this month. They're asking us to make presentations to them to justify our budgets to a sitting body that makes no decisions for us. And it concerns me about us doing that. So I would implore that I think that our attorney needs to look at this, but that is, again, just one board member's opinion.
So what you're saying, the report that we had that went on the Senate, the King and Walker emphasized the fact that this county does a commendable job of research and planning and putting together a 5-year plan. And they also refer to the sales tax that we had and we failed, and they recommended it because what we say we need, we actually need, that we tell the truth about things, that we take it and go back and put that on the voting situation again. That we return to that because they feel that this county should have that because we do the job we say we're going to do. And now, if the impact fees come back, maybe they can all be done together, or maybe just one and then later on the other. But what you're saying, or what this group is saying, is that you do the job, you ask for the money, you use the money just as you say you're going to use the money. You're not one of those that say, please give it to me for roads, and then you use it to do a water slide. You do what you're supposed to do. This I'm going to bring to the 20 people.
And it's verbiage, this is the old English teacher, shall is just the present tense of should. It's not a must.
Legally, I believe it does have actually,
Yeah.
though. It does have, in legal, it's usually shall means shall.
Shall means shall, at their discretion, I don't think it's a must.
But
No.
Mr. Bradshaw says
No.
it has to wait. He always says shall.
Legally, when we use the word shall in policy, it must happen. So is this board able to give the attorney direction on that?
And I'm not, again, the question that you're raising is that the attorney needs to review this impact fee agreement dealing with the word shall, or can?
Well, I think that we need to find out if this has new teeth for this board. For this board to, what the county commissioners have tried to say is we have no authority to over our own budget when it comes to, in particular, impact fees. I believe that this document changes that. Now, what's interesting is statute's clear. Statute puts that onto the Board of County Commissioners. But if you review around the state, interlocal agreements empowers many school boards that the counties are basically a pass-through. Their job is to maintain the impact fee accounts, but they are to adhere to the desires and needs of the school board because they're the ones that manage their budget. The county does not manage our budget. They have no authority over our budgets.
Well, and I agree with your concept is to try to raise money for the school district. But I mean, I think what you're saying is that we're going to hire our attorney to spend money based on a technicality on the wording of the document that they signed, that we all know the intent of the county commissioners has been very clear on impact fees. I think we've been clear on our point that we need impact fees, but to try to get into a legal argument, debate over that, I don't see as any chance of us winning. I mean, the concept is good. I mean, we have that idea that when we start seeing the impact of new students moving into the district, we need those impact fees. And we all agree with that. But, and again, I think, and I appreciate, Mr. Kennedy, the fact that you look into these things because I wasn't aware of that. And so you made that very much aware to us. I think that kind of continues to support what what I want as a board member and what I think the board has said, but I don't think it's worthwhile for us to enter into or to direct our attorney to try to win this battle. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think we're getting.
So then what we do is we do what we've done the last, unfortunately, 10 or more years. We continue to go to the board. They continue to deny us. And because now we may have a legal authority to actually direct the Board of County Commission, which is what other counties have, we're not going to consider looking at that. To me, that's a failure to the taxpayers then, who will end up having to pay that burden. And that concerns me.
I agree with Mr. Dodd. I think we've already signed this. The attorney signed it, Ms. Himmel signed it, Ms. Carson signed it, so I don't see why we need to review it and have the attorney go through that. I think just continuing to be public about our needs and our serious needs in our budget. I don't see that we can review it and get anywhere and spend more money that we don't have.
Well, the question becomes then, do you direct then that board? If there is now a legal precedent for us to be able to assert the fact that the county should be collecting impact fees, and we are not moving forward doing that, then we are, to me, being liable for not collecting tax dollar or fees that would offset and reduce the amount of tax burden by us saying, well, we all know it's there, but we're not going to necessarily explore that because we just don't know that we should. That to me would be a very concerning thing. I don't know right now legally if we can or can't, because this is what I'm looking at. I certainly know what shall has meant everywhere else when we've had legal issues. So if we're just sitting on this, then to me, we're potentially sitting on, I believe we lost over $500,000 in the last year. So that to me is a significant amount of money for us then to continue to sit on and not take any action on.
You're asking our attorney, Mr. Bradshaw, to research this. You're not asking us to bring in a new attorney.
No, I think Mr. Bradshaw could certainly look to see if there is merit to what we're saying, and if so, what can this board do then to move forward and request that the commissioners begin collecting impact fees as we have requested now for prior to the suspension of them.
Well, wouldn't the suspension take precedent, Mr. Bradshaw?
That's the unsuspended school. So it's really,
And in this contract on page 3 of 4, this agreement may be canceled upon 30 days written notice by one party or the other. I know.
Right, so, and that's exactly what
they
they
won't
do.
cancel in 30 days. Yeah.
And if they cancel that, then are we saying again that this board is going to continue to subordinate our taxpayers' needs and our students' needs?
And I try and work with them instead of talking about.
When haven't we?
We've got a new board.
We've got a new board.
We've got a new board.
So you're okay with the way our decision was, though,
I
that what they
say,
did?
let's approach it on not a lawyer level, sorry, Mr. Bradshaw, but just as board members to commissioners and see if we can get some civil discussion going on the needs.
I think it needs to happen because if you impact, then you should pay. You know what I'm saying? If you impact and the sheriff's office has to go out, then you should pay. If the school bus goes and picks up your child, you should pay. Impact fees, that should happen.
And I try to give the new board a little bit of a chance to distinguish before our challenges.
I don't see that this should be asking for a legal interpretation. I'm asking to change the Constitution.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Dodd.
Well, it was interesting going to the legislative delegation meeting. I'm glad we were there in force with Ms. Bryant.
Excuse
excuse me, it's 5:30. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
My speaker's
I'm sorry. We'll come back to you. I wasn't watching the clock. I wasn't watching the clock. Didn't you already have speakers? Yeah, we want us to read this and determine what shall means.
No, well, there looked like to me there was three.
I think there's a yes.
It would look like it was three, too.
All right. I'm going to recess this meeting and I'm going to open the public hearing. I need a motion on policy.
You open up, don't you open up public input?
Nope. Motion on policy first.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion because I believe we're expanding this. And so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the revisions to the student progression plan of special programs, page 66. And am I correct that if there is no second, it dies and reverts to the current language?
We have a second. We have a motion by Mr. Kennedy, a second by Ms. Powers. What did you say? It's the same thing?
Yeah, I think it's a change, but in terms of,
The change on the new one is it allows our seniors to go.
gives them
to
more, it's more.
Right.
It's not a
If
take
they lie, if
away.
they died for a second, then the seniors can only go to one second.
No, it's very, very good. The new gives more privileges. And as Mr. Bradshaw said, you can't do anything except vote yes or no.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Kennedy. We have a second by Ms. Powers. Now, let's hear from our public. Let's start with Robert Maldonado. Thank you. Robert Maldonado. You guys have 3 minutes. When you get to the podium, state your name.
Hello, board members. My name is Robert Maldonado. I'm here representing the students of the Academy of Environmental Science. I would like to, I believe that being able to attend the academy, being a sophomore is mine. The academy has given me opportunities that my base school at Canto, in terms of where it is, the connections I make with my teachers, the one-on-one collaboration, it really helps me to really progress and learn, and it really allows me to really enjoy much more. So that the experiences of being in high school, being on the Salt River, just being there and being able to look out the window and see the trees, the water, experience that. In addition to studying, doing my calculus, taking tests, and achieving the same goals that I would have if I were to attend my base school at Canto. I believe that regarding the semesters, that we should be able to choose not go to AES all 4 years of high school, because it's a charter school, it's not a high school, they're not accredited, but be able to choose when to go. So instead of going for, say, 1 semester in 11th grade, I could go to Lecanto full time and use that semester as a 10th grade slot and go there during that semester. Therefore, I would still be able to go to Lecanto for a minimum of 2 semesters and still be able to go to AES for the same amount of time, but during a time period where I would get the most out of it. Because I do look forward to going to Lecanto, and I have nothing against the school. They're wonderful teachers, you know, staff, it's great. But it's just personal for me as a student. You know? And I'm in the academic teams, on the math field day teams. We placed second last year. It's just much easier to collaborate with my team members to be there.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
What I want to say, there's so many great things that are coming from these students. They could be applied. I don't know why this was applied earlier, and where you could change the things they weren't.
No.
And so now we're left with a vote on a new policy that offers more to the students, or staying with the same policy.
Which is less.
Which is less. And so I hope this students understand what this is. It's not about some of the great ideas they talked about, which I would be totally in favor of. They're just really good. And our last speaker was talking about opening up some choices. Wonderful, wonderful ideas. But that's not what we can vote on today. So, Mr. Bradshaw, would you again state what we're dealing with right now? The only thing we can vote on.
It's because the student progression plan is policy that is adopted by the school board. If you get to the public hearing, you either vote yes or vote no. You can't modify what the policy is at this point in time. The time to do that was, at a workshop or at the hearing, at the regular meeting that we had to approve it for public hearing. Once it goes for advertising and gets to the public hearing stage, you're not allowed to modify it. So you can't add words or sentences, you can't take words or sentences out. So it's basically the law of what the school district is. And so the only thing you can do is say, we will adopt this, and then the new language becomes effective, or say we're not going to adopt it, and the old language stays in place. To make any changes, you will have to go back to either a workshop or another meeting and have those discussions, propose new language, approve it for advertising, and come back to another hearing like this.
But the board could grant exemption.
There's no exemption in here.
I'm not talking about that. We can approve the policy, the student progression plan, and immediately after that, pass under Florida statute the right of the board to run the district. Responsible ways to educate students, and we could grant a 1 semester or 1 year, whatever exemption we wanted to.
I don't know if you do that because you're basically creating how you're going to run the district in the student progression plan.
Well, I think the board's responsibility is to the public and to if it's in the best interest of students that we grant an exemption, that we have the power to do that.
I'm just telling you my opinion, Mr. Chairman.
And what is your opinion?
That you have to follow the student progression plan.
And that we have no power to grant exemption. Is that your opinion?
I'm aware that you have the power to grant.
Haven't we granted exemptions before?
Yes.
For what?
My question's for you.
I don't know.
Okay.
Robert Maldonado Sr.
Thank you. My name is Robert Maldonado Sr. I'm the father of the student who just spoke, Robert Maldonado. I just like to stress, elaborate just a bit more on what my son had mentioned, and that's environment. As we all know, I strongly believe there are students that don't mind learning in a more enclosed for long periods of time. There are students that progress and they benefit more in their academics when it comes to an more open environment, which we are all blessed to have here at Citrus County through your means. And we're grateful. And AES has been evidently a strong fortress to my son, and I believe I'm representing and may speak on behalf of many other parents who are present here, overshadowing their sons and daughters, our students, your students, our children. I speak evidently, just in brief, I just want to re-edify, I see my son progressing so much. He has acquired a love for the academics and the sciences and math especially. And that's because of his opportunity that he has here at Citrus County for that hands-on, open environment. I know because I've learned, and the person that I've become is all, I'm grateful for. I was brought up in a German orphanage, and it was a splendor. We had all the freedom of learning. The little red brick house, the schoolhouse, and the 2-mile hike to the school. That did me so much positively, and it entailed, and it just opened up my love for education and exploring and learning more, and the hunger was there, and that's what I see in my son. And if we can hopefully just hope that you can help the few students that are here, and thereafter the future students that will be attending, that they may share that experience. Maybe not all students have that longing to attend AES, but for those, we don't know what we are, how we are contributing, and it's such a positive, rich, the investments that we're making as a whole together, both you and us.
Thank you, Mr. Maldonado. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Chris Grant.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here. My name is Chris Grant. My son is Jonah Grant. He's a freshman at the Academy of Environmental Sciences. We are new residents to Citrus County. We lived here many, many years ago. And when we decided to get out of the chaos of Atlanta, we could move anywhere we wanted. And one of the determining factors was to come back to Florida. But also the reason to come back here was because of the Academy of Environmental Sciences and my son's passion for science. To see what we had to deal with in Atlanta, 40 plus kids in one classroom, so on, which a lot of schools are, plagued with. And to have him come to you and say, look, I'm lost. I'm going to be lost even more as I go into these other grades. He knew it. He knew the challenges, he knew the limitations, and he knew how to work hard. And so from that, we did pull him into a hybrid type private school where it was all science-based, lots of hands-on, lots of expeditions and things of that nature. And we did that for the last few years until we moved here. And so that passion, that hands-on, he knew that was his learning style, and to be able to have these relationships with the teachers, smaller classes, a smaller school. You don't have the chaos of 1,000 students walking around you, just like the chaos of driving through Atlanta. And then having that difficulty and those distractions. You think about when were you finally passionate in college? When did it all hit for all of us? And it was when you were finally working into your major. But here, and here the focus is these kids aren't in their major, but they're on their career path. They see that. And and that's very exciting to see that. We look at the other programs Citrus County has with the IB, the health, the art programs. These kids surround themselves with like-minded group, their peers, the upperclassmen, the people that they can look up to. And to see that, to see sophomores, seniors, and juniors reaching out and helping these kids at freshmen just coming in is quite amazing. And I never experienced things like that in my high school that I went to, which was a public high school as well. But that like-mindedness, you know, you're looking at a path to success because everyone is looking at that path. These students are, not just their teachers, these students are. And to have that group around them is quite a gift. And so what we're looking at is being able to have that ability to go on a year-round type basis when those things are available because of that transition, going to the new school again, the new teacher, the new philosophies and styles of teaching and or peer groups. The other peer group's gone. They're now lost again, and they keep getting lost. So what we're asking for is that same path to success that's given to others in the IB program, the art program, the health, that they have that. The students at ACS deserve that same opportunity. And that's what we're asking for.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Murphy. Please state your name.
You know, Ed Murphy,
Thank you, sir.
retired administrator. 11 years ago when I stood on this side, I looked around, there's 3 of you that are still here. It's nice to see you again.
Good to see you, sir.
But this was always known as the dark side. So, board members, Sandra Himmel, superintendent. The Academy of Environmental Science is unique in that students are allowed to excel on their own in small group settings rather than being swallowed up in the frenzy of large classes. Every student has the right to explore more options that you, the school board and superintendent, should advocate. These students are not in a rote method of making widgets, but they are looking at creative ways to enhance their lives as well as ours. The school board and the superintendent are asked collectively to support the AES in its request to allow these students the opportunity to hold themselves accountable in their own academic environment. And I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so let me make sure I understand this correct. If we vote for this, we're saying that all of our students at AES, if they want to, can go their whole freshman year at AES. They go 2 semesters, one semester, thank you. There's sophomore and junior, and if their grades are where they're supposed to be and their principal signs off, they can go the whole senior year. Is that right?
That's not what we're asking. That's what we have here to vote on. That's
Is that what we're voting on?
May I have an additional minute? Please.
State your name.
My name is Adam York, and I spoke before you guys. And tonight, I know maybe you might saw me, but I got pretty emotional there. And that was just because, mainly with Mr. Dodds, he asked for an exemption for us. It showed that a board member really cares. He really was fighting for us. I've never had someone fight so hard in a big position like this for such even a small charter school like us. What we're asking, the official what we want, even what Robert said, is not to be required to come a certain semester, but having the choice to choose our 6 semesters. So I would my full freshman year, and let's say that my sophomore year I wanted to attend both semesters at the academy. My junior year, let's say I wanted to attend both my semesters at Christie River. And my senior year I spent both semesters at the academy, so I was able to work with the academics, my teams there. I captained a lot of teams, including I'm president of the fishing club at the academy. I find it very hard to be able to participate in a lot of things at the school if I can't be at the school. So we're asking, and this is a lot, for you guys to try your hardest for our students here at the academy. Because it means so much to me.
Thank you, Adam.
Excuse me, I have a minute more.
1 minute. State your name.
And
Lee McGarren. I just want to say.
State your last name.
McGarren.
Thank you.
I just want to just kind of remind about the exemptions that were made for students in the past and the exemptions that are made at this very second for a certain student. And that's another thing I want you guys to keep in mind. When he wanted an exemption, just keep in mind that there was already kids that were having them. Okay?
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think there's some misunderstanding. I'm not sure of what exemption or non-exemption that someone's getting. So that one's new to me. There's always been, at every school, extenuating circumstances that have permitted administration to have conversations. That goes back to Mr. Stofcheck. But unfortunately, what became, as I think, the exception became more and more students. And I know what we've had is students that were not on track to graduate. And that's what really brought us to this conversation. I think we have always supported extenuating circumstances. This board doesn't have that authority. That's the superintendent as well as the school administration's authority, not a board member's. So I hope that that's understood, that first of all, boards and board members have no authority on that. At least that's my understanding, unless Mr. Bradshaw corrects us on that.
So are you saying that Mrs. Himmel has the authority then to grant an exemption? I was under the impression that the board was the only body that could exempt.
I don't have the authority to go against any policy that the school board voted on.
Right.
So it would be the board that would have to make.
But the board doesn't have an authority to tell a student where they can and cannot attend school other than through the policy itself. The superintendent has the authority to assign students to zone schools, but I do not believe that there's an authority to specific programs.
I think in my discussions, because I went out and visited the school, and I talked to a couple of people, including your president and your principal, and some of your parents. And I always used that. I didn't like the term exemption. I didn't like the term waiver. I think what we've got here is a really Bermuda Triangle for about 15 kids that are caught in what we've done in the past with policies and policy that is in print that we're have to deal with now. So I'll have to admit, as the adults, we probably haven't been following the policy, and you kids are caught in the middle of it. I was using the terms memorandum of understanding. I understand that there were 2 children that weren't on track to graduate, and shame on them, because you guys seem to be very, very aware that you have to come back to a base school. If you want a diploma from Citrus County schools, whether it's Lecanto, Citrus, or Crystal River, that you have to come back to that base school for 6 credit hours. I didn't think all of you knew that, but I changed my mind. I think there was one out there that thought they could stay for 4 years, but you can't do that because the Environmental Academy does not issue diplomas. But I use the term memorandum of understanding. So I was wondering if, in the other language that we changed had the child requested, the parent bought in, the principal of the base school had to approve, and then the AES people had to accept them. So it was where the child was initiating this desire for an education. I was very impressed with that language, and that's what went away. And so I'm not so sure right now that we need to be so locked into, we've got to change this policy right now, as much as we have to take care of these kids that seem to be caught in a catch-22 right now.
Right.
So a memorandum of understanding from these children that are caught right now, as long as they understand you must return to your base school. So if you're a senior now and you've used up all of your you don't have your 6 credit hours, you're going to need to get back into your base school. If you're a freshman and you're going to stay out there all year, then you need to start counting when you're going to go back. I remind, where's my FWC guy? Where's Logan over here? Logan, you understand if you're going to be in FWC, you need a college diploma, right?
Yes.
You need 2 years of foreign language. So there are courses that are being offered at your base school that are not offered out there that you've got to go back and get certain courses and a lot of you sounded like you're going to go to college. I'll tell you, at Crystal River High School, where I just retired from in 15, and I see my old principal in the back there, we have a language teacher at Costa Rica High School that partnered with our health academy that's based at that school. So they're not like at a separate location. But we have a language teacher that actually created curriculum to help just our health academy students. So I would look for maybe your principal, Mrs. Balfour, to work with some of our base schools so that you don't wind up in all those classes that are of use. And to tell you the truth, guys, you're not the only ones. I've been in high school 28 years, and with this 25 class size amendment, almost every student is going through what you're going through. The classes are full, the seats are taken. And so we need to work with your base school and AES so that your schedules can be modified. When you return to your base school, you're taking a Spanish class that's geared towards that environmental science. And it's geared towards something that's going to help you get into that college, get your scholarships, and move on. So I'm wondering if for these kids, we can just come up with a memorandum of understanding that you have to have 6 hours or 6 credits at your base school. But I know that we've blocked you in, and I think that's the problem. We've chosen that you have to do it during your sophomore and your junior year. I spoke with a guidance counselor that I have a lot of respect for. She's worked at 2 outstanding high schools in Citrus County for years. She was a graduate of our Citrus County schools. And she recommended that any AES child spend hopefully their first term in 9th grade, where they can get acclimated, meet a counselor, get into their main school, get into football prep rallies and homecoming games and things like that, and really get that camaraderie with the entire school system. And then the other required term would be your beginning of your senior year, and that's when you get your credit check and you start to apply for scholarships and you're looking at colleges and you're going on college visits. So, and again, that would lock you in. I think what I heard from all of you, that you don't want to be locked in, you want to pick. But I want you that's why I like that certificate, that memorandum, that boy, once you sign that thing, your butt's on the line to fulfill those deeds. And so I'm wondering if we can, for these kids that just seem to be caught in a crunch, can we do something like a memorandum of understanding?
Ms. Council, what would you do?
Then they go.
I'm not saying I'm against it,
but if
because you're asking now our guidance counselors to follow these memorandum of understanding. Several of our students made the comment that our counselors at the home school are so overwhelmed they don't have time to do these things, and that's been an issue, is getting them to follow these students, and they've got a process in place now. So, and I just want to be clear that,
I want to be
you all, I think every board member knew what they were voting in at the last time we brought this to them, correct?
Plus, I don't think that you can ask the superintendent to violate the policy, which is what you would be doing. Now, I will be more than happy to look and see if there is a waiver in the statute that you can legally do that. But if you're going to vote, it would be my legal opinion that the way this is written, that's the way it is. What I heard the students saying is that it's not the fact that they don't want to go back to their home school for the 2 semesters. They just want to be able to pick the semesters that they go back to their home school. Unfortunately, for you, and maybe an oversight by this board, it is something that you can discuss at a later time. You have said these are the times that you will go back to your home school. So I'm not quite sure how you get around that, because that is what you have planned.
And Mr. Bradshaw and Ms. Counts, the reason that was done, again, this wasn't something that was picked out. This was over 2 years of meeting initially with Mr. Stofchek and meeting with the district teams, the curriculum teams, and then again meeting in the high school progression plan with the guidance counselors. And I will tell you, at none of those meetings was there anyone from the academy that came forward to be a part of that. And I'm talking about from the school itself or from the board. But where this policy got developed from was the guidance counselors and the principals sitting down and saying, this is what would be the best place of putting it together, was this policy. So it's not like with what many of the suggestions that the students are saying. Absolutely, we would, not only did we consider that, we would still consider that. The challenge is you have things like, I want to take dual enrollment. But I can tell you, I've heard students say, but I'm not allowed to be at the academy and take dual enrollment because the academy would get charged for dual enrollment. And those were discussions that have been said. So this point is somehow trying to say, well, you all did this. There was so much conversation, so much input by guidance counselors, by principals to get to where we are. This was not something picked out of the sky. There was so much concerns, review of current problems, students that weren't on track. This is why we are where we are. And I absolutely feel for these students. What concerns me is why was an administration, why was this charter program not informing these students for over 2 years that this was going on and that we were making changes to try and improve that? Where was that conversation?
Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Dodds next.
Well, I think without placing blame on any one component in the system, there has been a breakdown of communications. And we have a group that's been affected by that. So without placing blame on whose fault that is, we have an affected group of people here that I think we have the responsibility and the power to make a decision on. Now, for those of you that are here, we have a policy before us on the student progression plan that I felt strongly when the board decided at the last meeting to extend the senior year from 1 semester to a full semester, that was a give, that was something, hey, if you have a child going into their senior year who has met all the requirements of graduation, then we want them to be at the Academy of Environmental Science if they want to be there. Graduation is the goal for all of our students. And I don't want one student at the AES not graduating because they didn't meet the credit requirements. So when you look at us as a board, that's the responsibility we owe to all the students in this district, and that's what we're trying to uphold. The problem, though, we have is that we have a policy before us that I think we have to agree to and give, which gives a second semester to students to go their senior year. In light of that, I would like to offer up a waiver or an exemption or whatever, the MOU, whatever we want to say for the students and families affected here for 1 semester. Now, the reason I say that is because one of the young ladies mentioned, there's no transitional period here. It's like, for some reason, communication didn't take place, and now it's affecting you, and it's affecting our guidance counselors, because they have so many other students that they have to put in classes. And I understand that it's probably hard to get you in classes that you want. And so in order for us to correct that, I feel like it would be a good idea to give us 1 semester waiver. Now again, in lieu of that, we have a contract that is coming due that we have to renegotiate that comes due this year, in March? June 30th. And I would like, so that is before next year starts, that contract can be worked out. And if we have to adjust the student progression plan at that time, is that something that's feasible, Mr. Bradshaw? That we can come back, if all parties agree to a contract that doesn't follow this agreed upon progression plan?
But if you agree to that, then you just put in that you agree to the student progression plan, that's why we have the environmental sciences, we're trying to make that contract. I don't know if I would actually want to put that in the contract, because the contract is probably at least 5 years, and the situation will change as far as the student progression plan. But you can lay out some parameters in there, especially as far as each year getting together and working on the best way for student attendance.
Right. Whether it's,
and the county certainly has input into the student progression plan. I mean, all of that is all open to the public and have hearings,
well, because one of the things we've heard here today is students don't want to have to say, you have to do a semester your sophomore year, semester junior year, my option will be a semester, 2 semesters in 1 whole year. And I don't want us to say, oh, well, we can't approve that in the contract because it violates our student progression plan. That's not going to be an issue, correct?
No, because right now the progression plan exceeds the contract.
Right. I would not.
The progression plan is giving more
What you're
money.
saying, Mr. Dodd, is this, is if you come to an agreement and that's the way you want it, then you would say that this needs to be part of the student progression plan. I would not advise that to put it absolutely in the contract terms, that this is how it's going to be. But you can put parameters in there as far as the academy and the school district working on making the student progression plan better or whatever. They could have done that also this year. I mean, if this was an issue, it wasn't an issue when it came in November, and it wasn't an issue when it came up for advertising. Because, I mean, all of those are public hearings advertised, and I'm sorry that you did not know about this, but it's on our agenda every single time of what we're going to do. So, I'm sorry that you kind of got caught blindsided by this, but I probably would advise against putting the specific way that students are going to attend the academy in the charter contract, and leave that up to discussions between the AES board or a designee and the superintendent or her designee as far as how the pupil progression.
And keep in mind, there's, this is the other the complexity of this situation that I don't know that even students can understand is that there seems to be a change here from what our contract was, which our contract says that students will be at the school a minimum of 1 semester, beginning with the freshman year. We've exceeded that. We've been, in some cases, drastically exceeding that. And in this language, we actually worked to exceed it more. But the challenge has become is that the charter school is a business. And so they get funding based on when students come there. They also are limited by the number of students that have access to that school, depending on the number of full-time students they have there. If the students have an opportunity to only go there, for example, 1 semester, twice as many students could be going through the Academy of Environmental Science. But that's not the case, because there are more that are wanting to be there full-time. That's fine. That's the charter school's determination what business model they desire to have. Our responsibility, though, as a school district, is to ensure students are on track to graduate and that they have the necessary courses in order for them to get to the next level of their collegiate post-secondary world. When we don't see students until their senior year, when we're not even aware, in some cases, that we have students because there's not been a connection made between the charter school and their base school, and that has been the problem. And we have said that can't continue. That's what has driven where we are today. And we're trying to say we want to fix something today that's been years of a building situation. We're frankly going to have some serious conversations about the charter contract into what we're going to do and not do within the charter contract. And what concerns me is this board saying we're going to ignore the processes we've done for the last 2 years that have involved the stakeholders that have to watch out for these students. We're going to ignore all of that and say we're going to somehow from our bench be able to make a decision that frankly I'm concerned with, because there's a lot of students here that we're sitting there saying, okay, well, we're going to give this person exemption, but that person's going to have a different exemption. I don't think this board should be in that position to do that.
So, but you're saying that then we can't help any of these people here, is that right?
But what I'm saying is that you're right now, I think because these people are in front of you, you're looking at this situation differently, and yet the facts are that you're also hearing one testimony. You haven't heard from the guidance counselors or the principals to talk about
I
the
spoke to the
issue.
guidance counselor.
Mr. Mullins, you want to
If
talk?
you would like, I will pull a guidance counselor up and ask some very serious questions
Yeah.
that concern me to say that have been said on the record. And I'm not sure that really those are things that would be best to say in this forum.
The president of the AES said that there were only 2 students who were not on track to graduate. How many of you look at Skyward and check your grades and your GPA? You know that you need 24 credits to graduate? We're not talking about the run-of-the-mill kids.
You're dealing with the
going through our-
ones that are in your room.
I know.
You're not dealing with also the other students that is looking to make a fundamental change in the way the school operates.
I'm just trying to make a change for these students that seem to be caught in a crack because of past policies.
Where was that conversation in November?
May I have a minute? May I have a minute?
Mr. Dodd wants to say something now, please.
Mr. Bradshaw, so I don't think maybe I wasn't clear in my question, because I'm not clear in your answer. We have a contract that has to be rewritten in June, or that expires in June. And in this policy that we are going to approve, the student progression plan, it says specifically that 10th and 11th grade students attend AES during one of the terms during the school year and at the base school during the other term. Now that's what we're going to approve. My question is if the contract, if the administration and the AES board agrees that there can be some flexibility to that, are they going to be told no, they can't do that because we've already approved this in the progression plan? We can go and change this in the progression.
We would change the progression plan, which comes back to you in June. We change the progression plan every year.
Okay.
So we would not we would not present you with two documents that conflicted with each other.
Right. When the groups meet, no one's going to hold up this progression plan that we're going to approve here, that I'm going to vote for today, and say, you can't do that because it violates our progression plan. We're not going to let that
The
happen.
contract is not going to be, there's not a portion of it that's going to say 10th graders can go one semester, 11th graders can go one, or there's 6 semesters and they can pick and choose whatever. It'll say that they will follow the student progression plan or other policies of the Citrus County School Board, and this progression plan can be changed at any time through the same process we just went through.
So upon the negotiation of a new contract, we can then go in and change the progression plan to match the new contract. That's something that we can do in a timely manner.
What I would say is that as negotiations as far as the charter contract go, I'm sure that this will be an issue and the parties that need to discuss a modification of the progression.
And the progression plan is voted on by the board every year. So when we bring that back to you at the end of this year, then those changes that everybody agrees on will be a part of the new progression plan.
Right, but
The current
we have
requirements
school year.
were worked out with the AES lead teacher administrator at the time, Mr. Stofchak. The current requirements were. Now, I don't know how they don't get communicated. They are on the AES webpage. If you go to the application process for AES, those requirements are on. I'm looking at them right now on the AES website. So those requirements are out there. How they didn't get communicated, I don't know the answer to that.
The concern too, and Ms. Counts, I appreciate what you're trying to accomplish, but what I have said always is that each year, when a student goes to AES, beginning with their first year, there should be a map that says a curriculum mapping of what courses they would be taking at what schools and when. And then it should be reviewed annually with the parents and the students and the administration signing off on that, so that everyone is on the same page. That has not taken place. There's not a communication with the guidance counselor in doing that. But that's not been has taken place that has brought us to where we're at now. And we do not have a situation where we can say in this room, every one of the people you're trying to address, which I understand, that a guidance counselor from our school has sitting off and mapped out where we're going through graduation with them. That's what's led us to where we're at right now.
That's why the guidance counselor I spoke to thought that she should see the AES kids the first term of their ninth grade. and do that.
I can certainly think that's a valid consideration, but that's where we're at right now.
And that's one of the things that we're talking about when we review the contract and the negotiations. And again, the staff doesn't care which way the board wants to go on this. I would just ask you to do one thing. Do not give us different rules for different students. That's impossible for my counselors to manage. Don't put them in a position to fail. If you want to do something, then suspend the pupil progression plan for AES until the contract is renegotiated this year. Just suspend it. Suspend all the language, and that will take care of whatever you want to do. But do not give us different rules for different 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds. Because tomorrow comes another day, there's going to be 15 new kids come in and want to do something different. It's impossible for counselors to be able to live by different standards like that. You're asking them to do something that's not fair for them.
And we will be doing that if we do change this anyway. I will say this, and Mr. Bradshaw, you correct me if I'm wrong. Can this board, in essence, table this issue, this particular language? I believe we have only recessed the other meeting. Am I correct? We're in a recess of the other meeting.
We are.
Table this. When the chairperson reopens the other meeting, we have a motion made to for the moment, suspend the AES pupil progression plan language that we will move to suspend it. We'll actually have to come back and re-advertise. But in the meantime, we would direct the superintendent will suspend that language, and then we will allow this process to again, for the third time, take place through the pupil progression plan and the AES negotiation of contract.
Well, then you suspend the policy at a regular meeting.
Well, can we say this then? In the regular meeting, we make a motion that a new policy, or that we do a strike all of the pupil progression policy for AES for this term. And we do that as a modification, that on page 66, we do a strike all, and then allowing the rest of the policy to take place.
If you suspend our requirement to follow that pupil progression plan language for AES, then that solves the problem for the 15
That's my
students that are here now. We will not follow that language. Before we enroll any new students at the end of this semester for next year, we will renegotiate that contract, and we will also rewrite the pupil progression plan, because that's part of our processes that we've already started for next school year. So it's only impacting the second semester of this year. It is not impacting what happens in the fall. So if it's your desire to do something.
So I'm suggesting that we table this.
That's the only thing.
We then open up the other meeting.
Either suspend it.
And I would, at that point, though, what I would say is, if we table this, and that I would say that we would suspend, then we would reopen the other meeting, and that in that, and I'm looking for my agenda so that I can state it correctly.
I'm looking for the agenda. Mr. Mullen, you're saying strike the current language?
I see those reasons.
So, and I'm saying strike.
First off, I would object to the word strike, because I don't think that without a public hearing, you can modify that. So
No, that's why I'm saying I'm tabling this one.
I understand. In the public hearing, because of the way the rules work, you either have to say yes or no to this.
Okay, so we say yes or no, it doesn't matter.
When you get back to a regular meeting, if you want to try to suspend the enforcement of that particular
then I'm saying
portion of the student progression plan, that's a different.
Then I'm saying this to this board, who have had to carry in some way, somehow, this idea that I am against AES, which I am far from. But that said, I am saying that I'm suggesting to this board, we vote this. I would say that in my case, I'm going to vote for it, because it's only been expended. But here's what I'm going to do. We open the meeting. I would ask the chairperson if I would be allowed to make a motion to modify the student progression plan to remove the Academy of Environmental section for this year. Okay, then to suspend the enforcement of it, and then allow us to again go through the pupil progression plan process, getting all the stakeholders again back to the table as part of the contract negotiation and the pupil progression plan. I'd like it to again to be said, because it's important to go on the record, this will be the third time we've done this. The third time.
Okay, so we've got a motion and we've got a second. Do you have any further comments on this?
I just want to say, that getting back to doing it, we need kids out here to be part of that input. Y'all are very, very concerned. We need your information. We haven't had it before. You're a surprise to us today. We need you to be
Ms.
part
Powers, they have an administrator who they could meet with, and we have invited her, she's been invited to all of David Rowland's meetings, she's been invited to be part of this, and she also, and I say this in front of the board, the AES board, she's been invited to every one of our pupil progression plan meetings, she's been invited to every one of our secondary meetings, and yet has come to attend. That, and I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just telling you, we need the AES input. And if they're going to carry it on from the kids, some of them have some great ideas, then that needs to go through them. Or Miss Betty, you come to our meeting if nobody wants to come meet with our staff. David has extended that for every single meeting, and we've got to have representation.
None of us as parents and students know about your meetings. We didn't know. about your meetings.
The trouble is again, there's a process. You all meet with your board, and your board is the one that then communicates that to us.
So you're having a meeting about our students, you are, so how do
But the policy,
Our pupil progression plan meeting or at any of our curriculum meetings, they are attended by our staff, our principals, our guidance counselors, and those staff members. When our principals go back to their schools, and you all have an administrator, when they go back to the schools, they share that with all their administrators, their teachers, and they get input, and then they'll have another meeting. That's how we get input from the schools. Our students do not attend those meetings, not because we don't want them, but they don't attend because we can't have 15,000 students sitting in a meeting or 1,000. But we expect our administrators to go back and get input and how it impacts the schools. And that's why I say that to the board sitting here today, that we need input from your administrator and/or a board, that we can put one of your board members on, and David Rowland heads that committee, and we just need that. So that's how we can do that.
So if we pass the policy that's before us, now I made the recommendation that I was going to make a motion to exempt the 15 to 18 students or give them a waiver from this policy. Now, Mr. Mullen, you brought up some other wording that Mr. Kennedy has now taken. I want to know from you, what is that you're presenting so that I can understand what you're saying that we're going to do, because I'm not really clear.
What you're proposing is just these 15 kids could do whatever they want to do.
For this semester.
And I'm suggesting if you're going to do anything, just suspend the language altogether. And that way, counselors don't have to apply the language. They don't have to worry about whether it was one of the students at this board meeting or whether it was a student that didn't attend the board meeting, that the same rule applies across the board.
So-
Treat them all the same. That's all I'm saying.
And that's what I was
I'm
trying
not
to say,
suggesting we
Mr.
treat anybody differently. Treat them all the same. Suspend the AAS
So basically,
language
for
and let
me-
us renegotiate it with
Or if
them.
they had a new student to enroll, it's suspended for them also.
So for any student that would be
We're going to
all with
suspend
this
the
second
language,
semester.
the
just
current
have to make it
language
fair
that's
for all
in
of them.
AES, the student progression plan.
Okay.
Just suspend the current language,
Okay, I'm
and
good
we'll
with that.
rewrite it and re-present it to you in June.
And
then hopefully everybody will live by what it says.
And when we go over it in
The
June,
thing I would suggest is you at least need to have the application process.
well, I
Well,
could,
that's in place. They're already applied, so I don't think that's a problem with the academy.
so, and again, so when that takes place, to get that ironed out in June, then we can adjust the student progression plan so that there's nobody that's going to hold this committee to the student progression.
Like tomorrow.
We are starting to.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mr. Rowland already
there's a
has a meeting
process.
established.
Okay,
The charter
okay.
contract that says you're going to follow these statutes and the things you got to do.
David, when is the meeting with the AES?
Detail,
The first meeting was the high school directions meeting, and then on January 26th, we're going to have input about the AES contract and student progression plan.
And the AES lead administrator has indicated that she will be attending.
And so, but it was said that we would revisit this next year on the student progression plan, but really, that's not really next year, it's within the,
It will be.
yeah, okay, okay. I'm still thinking in my mind, we're gonna do this again a year from now, we're gonna, okay, all right.
We will make sure both documents coincide with each other, the contract and the pupil progression plan will not conflict with each other.
Are we ready to go?
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further questions or comments? All those in favor of approving the revision to the student progression plan, special programs, page 66? Say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Aye, whatever.
You said so, yes.
I think it passed 5-0. Any opposed? Very good. I'm closing the public hearing and I'm reopening the,
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion, if I may have a thing. I would like and Mr. Bradshaw, I'd like to ask a question. Can we or should we instead take the existing language that I'm seeing here, which is I'm saying the new one we just passed, and ask for it to be revised, striking all of that? You can't revise it again. Okay. So then, Madam Chair, I am asking a motion or consideration of suspension of enforcement of the Academy of Environmental Science until this new progression plan has the 2017-2018 progression plan is approved, as well as the contract with AES.
I would only suspend it until a new progression plan regarding AES is brought back before the board, because if you tie it in with the charter school contract, not saying that it won't happen, but you might not come to an agreement on a charter school contract. There's all kinds of different things. So you don't want to tie this in, to run.
Then I revise it to say that we suspend it until a new pupil progression plan has been approved.
okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kennedy, a second by Ms. Powers. Do we have any questions or comments?
I heard Mr. Bradshaw say until it was brought before the board, not approved.
Approved.
Okay, I'm just checking my mind.
And I think y'all can still reserve the right to reinstate it, because you're just suspending it. I know. I rarely turn this on, so it's just that, I said, because you're just suspending, and I think the board maintains authority to reinstate it, but I understand what you're saying, getting the stakeholders together and to try to work out a new portion of the AES student progression plan, and then bring that back for public hearing.
Is that good for everybody? All in favor?
Oh, wait, I had a question.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Mullen, then I understand that if a student who is in their second semester, their sophomore year, has gone back to their base school, right now, if they wanted to go back to AES this semester, even if they're not in this 15, 18 kids that are not happy, they can still do that.
Hopefully, we'll be able to work that out where they can have the classes that they need. AES can accommodate them, but we'll have to work those out. I can't answer that question because I don't know what they need on their schedule. But if they can work that schedule out, every student, as you heard, is individual.
Right.
So if it can be worked out where they can go there, then yes, we will accommodate them. If AES can take them, if they have the classes to offer them, if they have the space available, everything works out, then we'll do that. We'll iron this out, and we'll put something new into effect that everybody can live with from here on out.
Madam Chair, the one thing I
Yes.
would... Oh, I'm sorry, Betty.
I just have one more comment. Children, the man at the end of the dais up here, his name is Mr. Mullen, and he's now your new hero.
Madam Chair, the one thing I would suggest is that I would encourage the AES board to have some conversation with this and put this on their agenda to give their parents, no, I'm saying to give parents and students their opportunity to give input to your board, because what we're going to be talking about has to do with the operations between your board and our board. And that in itself is what has continued to be the challenge that's before us. So that input needs to be brought to your board so that you all can bring it to us. And that, unfortunately, is where we're at right now. So And I know your board, Miss Betty, I know you've been trying hard. So, and I know there's a lot of catch-up going on. I'm ready to go.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Dodd, were we in the middle of you? I think we were in the middle of you.
Just started.
You had just started.
So the legislative delegation meeting was interesting. I do, I feel like, they talk about US 41 North, and, this school district too has been a proponent of that, making sure that we, move forward with 41 North. So, I think that is something that the city and the county are both for. Also, Galaxy the Stars is next week.
Don't care about this portion?
Galaxy the Stars is coming up on Thursday, so I'm looking forward to being there, and we recognize our teachers and your support person here. It's always an exciting time for our district.
That's what we really need is more organization than we had
that we expect. And so, that's coming up. I appreciate Mr. Kennedy's varsity sports extension with that, just education credits. It's very common sense. And,
It's so uncommon.
yeah, so I'm glad, and I'm glad that Representative Zulo is you're working with him, and he's already put the bill before. So I hope we can they can get a sponsor. Is there a sponsor on that?
No, but I think Simpson is certainly willing to help you trying. I think we're encouraging him to pick up the torch, and he's actually been, his office has been working with me for a year on it, Simpson. So.
And so, as we are well aware that the legislature dictates so much of what we have to deal with, and this councilor should have learned more about that process when we go to Tallahassee this year. And I think I've been, since I've been on the board, I've been happy with the work that's been done to try to lobby our legislature and try to make changes that we feel like will be for the best, not only for our district, but for the students in Florida. The school resource officer program, I've talked a little bit with Ms. Himmel about that, and I know you had said that there was going to be a meeting you were having with the sheriff just to ensure that we were in good shape with the school resource officer program. So, I know that's dear to our hearts that we stay on top of that, and with the new sheriff, we make sure that we're in a complete understanding of how that program is administered. Youth Leadership Citrus, I'm on that board, and on February 14th, and I believe that's a board meeting day, we are having the Youth Leadership Citrus program on education, and it's actually historical and education, so we'll be spending some time with the Puget Technical College and the vocational programs, as well as being here, and Mrs. Himmel will be discussing education with those students, but that's a good thing. In January, by the way, they're doing the Criminal Justice Day, so that program is very well received, and we got to keep trying to grow it and build that program. The Nature Coast Envirothon is coming up on February 21st at Fort Cooper State Park, and I'm excited that it's coming back to Fort Cooper. That's close to where I live, and I volunteer out there, and that's a great event that's coming up. And then the Martin Luther King Unity Walk, the City of Inverness is sponsoring a Unity Walk on Monday, January 16th, 8:30 at the Valerie Theater. I think they're partnering with the Church Without Walls, the new Church Without Walls, and so I'm planning on being there on that Monday, and I'd like to invite all of you to come. I think, Mr. Kennedy, you actually said something out too about another event, maybe a parade, was it, or a parade, I think.
The parade, the Christopher River parade, and I'm in a swim meet this whole weekend, so I guess I do it.
Starts at 11 o'clock on Saturday.
On
So I'm
Saturday.
not sure that we can make the walk over here.
Well, the walk is on Monday.
Yeah.
The walk's
No,
on
I mean, I'm sorry, the parade's on Monday. There's a service at Seven Rivers Presbyterian the night before.
Right, so, I just,
8:30 over here, but by 11 over there, so I don't know whether we
Well,
want
this
to.
one,
Can
the
we
event
walk?
starts on, the ceremony of your starts at 9.
Okay, so can we get back to Christopher River by 11? I got it, so I think we have to choose one or the other.
all right, that's all I have.
As long as we're representative from.
Whew. Where'd everybody go?
They don't care about our schools. Did you use your dial this morning?
I told Mr. Mullen he's always been my hero.
Only thing I have to add to what Mr. Dodd said is March the 29th, 30th, and 31st is our days in the legislature in Tallahassee. And Ms. Verderami, have I already given you those days?
I just not received the information from Tallahassee.
What's your days? The 29th, 30th, and 31st? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? We are. So anyway, if you get some rooms there, that'd be excellent. Oh. And I did enjoy meeting with Representative Masulo and Mr. Simpson. That was quite fun. Then I had to go home and take care of my sick husband. Fun. I think that's all we have.
The meeting with the county commission, that's,
The 20th?
is that the 20th?
I think so.
I'll make sure, I know I have that on my calendar.
I hope I do, because I can't anywhere. And I'm voting on business.
And what do we have to do, do we have to notice that, or is that,
Yeah, Linda will do that.
we'll notice all of that?
Mhm.
So that's gonna be, it's kind of like what we did last year?
I think so.
Was Denise playing there last year?
No.
You don't want to come. Okay. Okay. Very
This is the
good.
same thing that we did last
Yeah,
year.
last
out
year,
at
yeah.
the Canto.
CF?
Yeah,
And where are we meeting this year?
same.
At CF? Okay.
Ms. Bryant, could I just add one thing?
Yes, sir.
Is I would ask that if you could all familiarize yourself with the AES contract, because it's clear to me today that the direction, that we are way away from where the direction of that academy started.
Yes.
And so for my staff to sit down and work out a new contract and a guidelines in the pupil progression plan, or policy in the pupil progression plan, we need to know a clear direction from where this board wants to go.
I think we have to have a workshop on that.
And I would agree. And we will work out what we feel is a good recommendation, but it's a moot point if we're not going to get, if we're not going the direction this board wants to go. So I think that's all I would ask, is that we have some dialogue,
Yes, sir.
give us some clear direction.
You know, one thing that we may do is perhaps there would be an opportunity to have a joint workshop between their board representatives and ourselves.
That's excellent.
And that we, can sit, and it doesn't need to be in this room. Maybe we public notice it in a larger room like upstairs, and we sit around the table and we talk about some of the issues, the challenges, and, they have, so that we can talk all about it, because
We hash everything out.
right now, I agree. That's what has been the issue. We have a contract, and we tried to put the pupil progression plan in line with the contract and the practices that were best serving our students. And there's still an issue about why that wasn't communicated.
The school, I looked at the contract and the school hasn't been following the contract for a long time. And I think that's the problem with these kids.
Part of the issue is their administrator does not come to our meetings, okay? She was very
And you
clear.
said that very clearly.
Well, but that irritates me. These kids are calling the bond.
Yeah.
And because they didn't know that this January they're going back to the homes in the school because no one communicated that to them. So I'm very clear.
And I would think that it might be better for us, Ms. Bradshaw, if we had a skeletal revision of this existing contract that we would work with, so we weren't.
It's just, and I would suggest that when you do a 5-year contract, because this one was 10, and in the last 10 years, the charter school laws have changed so much, they change every year, depending on what's going on, so,
And really, it's, again, the laws, the charter school laws don't necessarily all apply cleanly to this arrangement because they do not graduate from this particular school. And so therein continues to lie the difference between our IB programs and our Health Academy programs and other ones where they do get a diploma from that school. This is the only program where they get a diploma from a school that they may never have attended.
It's the only program that we got off-site. The other programs are on-site at the main school. So it's not unusual for them to go from their Health Academy classes at Christopher High School and all of a sudden take an art class, going to ROTC. They're there at the school.
That's why they really can't compare their
Yeah, and so they-
to what we do on campus, it's different.
The problem is it's not a true charter school. I think
Yeah,
it was
that's it.
25 years ago when this happened, and it was like the beginning of the charter school stuff.
21 years ago.
And it was, you know, and it was a district-sponsored charter school. When you read the contract, really, it's our employees, it's our food services, it's everything. They get FTE and pay us back some of that money, but outside of that, I mean,
We
they have
feed
their-
them?
they
We
have-
feed them?
They have their board, and they kind of run it, but they have to keep, and I meant to call you today, I mean, they have to have their fund here or something, don't they, Ken?
Yeah, we do the payroll.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's really,
We hire them.
it's really a strange situation.
Yeah, it's not a clean, and that's, and it's, from what we understand, it's the only one.
Hey, somebody's up in front of you on the.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Yes, they
wonder where that
And
is.
the reason those charter school contracts you do is basically since, you know, they get the FTE, and they have to maintain certain levels of quality to teachers, and comply with all this stuff, because they sponsor, the state says you gotta sponsor them, and when they go south, you gotta run into a safety. But up until that point, they kind of do their own thing. This is a hybrid situation.
And the number of students, if I recall, the issue about being on track and not on track to graduate has also been the fact of what our guidance counselors have all of a sudden found out and then tried to put in changes. So it's not like that just cleanly happened on its own. Somebody who's left already though, but I do want to just lift out, Mr. Rowland has spent just a tremendous amount of efforts trying to mitigate, work through these challenges in his role. And I appreciate him so much because he has truly bared the brunt of it. But this is not something that is just today. This has been developing for years, and our efforts were to do what was right for students. And unfortunately, that message seems to have gotten missed in the way it was conveyed, and that's concerning. But that's not necessarily that is hearsay. I don't believe anyone that has been given anyone, there's no one that would have the authority to do that. So if that's happened, that's exactly what we were trying to stop, is because we were finding out there were students that were remaining at the school that no one knew existed.
Nobody from the district has any input in who they take as students.
Or who doesn't return back to their home base school.
They have handpicked students out there.
We don't make those decisions.
So that would be on them that made that exemption, not us.
And the homeschool issue should be looked at faster too, because
I don't think you can homeschool.
The contract does not allow for homeschooling. Because the problem is they can't graduate from homeschool.
We had a homeschool girl that was a conservative.
And it-
We
no,
can.
No.
Look,
We
because
can, right,
the statute says that you have to allow homeschool students
I know how
to
it is.
participate in extracurricular and extracurricular.
Yeah, but I mean, she was.
They also can take courses at your school.
No, we had two students, but they also returned to their base school.
Participate
Well,
in
And the other thing is, they are allowed to take students from outside the county.
Yeah.
Yes, they are, yes.
Yes. But
And
all of the
our
students have to
students are supposed
be,
to have priority, but if they're not full, and full by contract is 80 students.
but if they take them from outside the county, they still have to be registered by our contract to a base school in Citrus County, which is why there isn't any homeschool provision.
You're right, Mr. Kennedy, because if they weren't registered with one of our home schools, they wouldn't be, it's not an accredited
But
school.
it starts, ironically, at the base school. And that's, again,
I'll go.
a conversation that's not going to be taking
I've always
place.
liked to let you take the Health Academy at Crystal River and put it out in someplace next to the
Senator.
hospital. And we don't have any input into it. It's really,
And this has been a progression over many years, and it is time to, it is boiling over now.
Time to fix
Contract
it.
is up, and it's not a bad thing. The kids are gonna be, okay, we'll get it fixed. It's gonna move on.
And it is a great church to watch. Because everybody asks, what's that? What are those kids doing? So there's a lot of people in that county around the state.
They notice us.
Oh my heavens, you're in an environmental school? Didn't you notice it?
Yep.
So I see.
No one has any objection, we're going to adjourn.